The wind carried a strange hum that morning, soft, rhythmic, almost like a forgotten melody weaving itself through the rustle of the early forest. Arin had woken long before sunrise, long before the first streaks of gold melted over the horizon. His heart had been restless all night, pulsing with a feeling he couldn't explain. Something was coming. Something old, something that had waited far too long to be found. The village of Eldrun lay quiet behind him, its stone cottages clustered like sleeping giants. Smoke curled lazily from a few chimneys as the world stretched awake, unaware that fate had already begun tightening its threads. Arin tightened the straps of his satchel, his fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from anticipation he didn't dare admit aloud. For years he had been haunted by the same dream, a massive gate of shimmering obsidian, carved with symbols older than the world, slowly opening while a voice whispered, "Find me." He never saw what lay beyond the gate. He only felt the pull, like gravity from another reality. And each time he woke, the dream stole his breath and left him with the same gnawing certainty, this wasn't mere imagination. It was a summons. Now, standing beneath the towering oaks at the forest's edge, he felt the whispers echo again. "Find me." It sent a chill down his spine, but also lit something fierce inside him. Arin stepped onto the ancient path, its soil softened by centuries of footsteps, though none had walked it in decades. The elders warned children to stay far from the old forest. They said the trees remembered everything, even the things people wanted forgotten. But Arin wasn't afraid, or maybe he was, but he'd learned long ago that courage wasn't the absence of fear, courage was stepping forward even while fear gripped your ribs like iron. Leaves crunched under his boots, sending tiny sparks of sound into the stillness. Sunlight struggled to pierce through the dense canopy, creating long streaks of shadow that danced across the ground like wandering spirits. The deeper he went, the stronger the hum became. It vibrated beneath his skin, thrummed in the air like a heartbeat just out of reach. Hours passed, though time bent strangely inside the forest. It felt both endless and too quick, like he was walking through a memory instead of a place. Arin's breathing grew shallow as the trees thickened, their roots twisting like ancient veins. And then, just as the hum grew loud enough to tremble in his bones, he found it. A clearing, perfectly round, silent as a held breath. And at its center, half buried in moss and time, lay a monolithic stone door. His heart slammed against his ribs. The door from his dreams. Obsidian black, carved with spiraling symbols that faintly glowed gold as he approached. The gate was enormous, at least twice his height, yet only half visible, its other half sunk deep into the earth as if swallowed long ago. Arin reached out a trembling hand. The hum crescendoed, singing through the air. The symbols flickered like awakening embers. The moment his fingertips brushed the cold stone, a shockwave blasted outward, silent but powerful. Wind whipped around him, tearing through the clearing in a spiraling vortex. The ground quivered. The entire forest seemed to inhale. Arin staggered back, shielding his face. The obsidian door pulsed with light. Then the symbols rearranged themselves. Not carved, alive. The golden lines shifted, reforming fluidly until they shaped a pattern he recognized from every sleepless night, the mark that had haunted his dreams. A circle split by a single vertical line. His breath hitched. It's real. The glowing symbol sank inward like melting wax, revealing a gap, a sliver of an opening, and from within, a single thread of warm light seeped out. Swirling like smoke around his wrists. "Find me," the whisper returned, not through his ears but directly through his mind. "You are finally here." Arin stumbled backward, gripping his chest. "Who are you?" he whispered hoarsely. The light coiled tighter around him, almost gentle, almost affectionate. "The one you were born to remember." The clearing dimmed as the sliver of light faded, sealing the door once again. But the glow on Arin's wrist, where the light had touched, remained. A small mark now burned on his skin. The same symbol as the door. Arin's knees trembled beneath him. This was real. His life, ordinary, small, predictable, was gone now, swept away by an ancient force that had waited for him alone. He didn't know what the message meant. He didn't know why the forest had chosen him. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever lay beyond that gate had awakened, and it had claimed him. As he turned back toward the village, the whisper faded, replaced by only the echo of his own heartbeat. But the mark on his wrist glowed softly beneath his sleeve, pulsing like a promise. The world he knew was ending. A new one, far older, far more dangerous, was calling him into its depths. And Arin, despite the weight of fear pressing into his spine, stepped forward. night fell over Eldrun like a velvet curtain soaked in ink. The moon hung low, swollen and pale, casting an eerie glow across the rooftops. Arin walked the narrow cobblestone streets with his hood drawn tight, the mark on his wrist burning faintly beneath the fabric like a live coal. Every step he took felt heavy, as if the weight of the forest summons clung to him like unseen chains. He kept glancing over his shoulder, convinced the shadows themselves were following him home. By the time he reached his small cottage at the village outskirts, his pulse was still racing. The familiar creak of the wooden door greeted him, but even the warmth of the hearth did little to numb the trembling that lingered in his hands. He sat on the edge of his bed and unwrapped the band of cloth around his wrist. The mark glowed faintly in the dim light, gold, swirling, alive. "What do you want from me?" he whispered, though he knew the forest would not answer with words. It answered instead in silence, a silence too deep, too knowing. Arin's mind replayed the vision at the obsidian gate, the light coiling around him, the whisper that seemed to come from the marrow of the earth itself. He felt as if something ancient had reached through time and carved its claim onto his skin. And though part of him wanted to deny it, to pretend it had all been a hallucination or a dream, the ache beneath his skin wouldn't let him. He knew the truth. He had awakened something, and in doing so, had awakened himself. A sudden knock at the door jolted him upright. Arin. It was Lyra. He hastily pulled his sleeve down before opening the door. Lyra stood outside, her lantern casting a warm halo around her. Her fiery auburn hair was pulled into a messy braid, and her usually sharp gaze softened when it met his. "You disappeared before dawn. Everyone's been worried." She narrowed her eyes. "What happened?" Arin hesitated. Lyra had been his closest friend since childhood. She was fierce, curious, stubborn, everything he wasn't brave enough to be. She could read him with frightening accuracy. And if he told her the truth, would she believe him? Would she think he'd lost his mind? Before he could answer, Lyra stepped inside, closed the door, and folded her arms. "Spill it." Arin took a shaky breath. "I went into the old forest." Her eyes widened with disbelief and anger. "What, Arin? Why would you?" "I had to," he cut in. "The dreams, the voice, it's all real." Lyra's expression shifted from anger to concern. "Arin, the dreams again. You promised you wouldn't." "This wasn't a dream," he snapped, more desperate than loud. He held out his wrist and pulled back his sleeve. Lyra's breath caught. The golden mark pulsed once, like a heartbeat. She reached out with trembling fingers but withdrew before touching it. "Arin, what is that?" "I don't know," he whispered. "But it came from the gate." "What gate?" He exhaled shakily. "The one from my dreams. It's real, Lyra. I found it." Silence flooded the room. Lyra slowly sat down, her eyes fixed on the glowing symbol. "Tell me everything." And he did. He told her about the clearing, the obsidian door, the shifting symbols, the light that wrapped around him like a living thread. He told her about the whisper in his mind, the voice that knew him, the message that felt older than the world. When he finished, Lyra stared at him, stunned into stillness. Finally, she murmured, This sounds like the ancient myths. The ones the elders said were stories to keep children in bed." Arin nodded. "I think they lied." Lyra's eyes hardened, or hid something. Before he could respond, a faint tremor shook the floorboards beneath their feet. Arin froze. Lyra gripped the edge of the table. What was that? Then came a second tremor, stronger, more deliberate. The lantern flickered violently. A sound followed, a deep, low hum. The same hum from the forest. Arin's blood turned to ice. "It found me," he whispered. Lyra grabbed his arm. "What do you mean?" But he didn't have time to answer. The tremor intensified until the cottage walls groaned. Suddenly the light from his wrist flared, bursting through the sleeve of his tunic like a beacon. The hum resonated in the air, shaking dust loose from the rafters. Then, crack, the wall behind them split open. Dark tendrils of shadow seeped through the crack, twisting like serpents, writhing with an unnatural hunger. Their movements were not random, they were searching, sniffing, reaching toward Arin with a terrible purpose. Lyra screamed and pulled him back. "Arin, run!" But the shadows lunged, alive, intelligent, hungry. Arin grabbed Lyra's hand and bolted out the door into the cold night air. The village was eerily silent, the sky unnaturally still. As they ran across the cobblestones, the shadows burst from the cottage after them, long, skeletal, dripping darkness like liquid ink. Lyra gasped. "What are those things?" Arin could barely breathe. "I don't know. I think they came from the gate." The shadows didn't move like creatures, they moved like nightmares, bending at impossible angles, stretching across walls and rooftops as if the entire surface of the world belonged to them. And they followed the glow on Arin's wrist like predators tracking a star. Head to the bell tower. Lyra shouted. It's the tallest place, they'll have trouble climbing. They sprinted through the village square, dodging barrels and crates as the shadows slithered behind them with horrifying speed. Arin's lungs burned. His legs felt like lead, but adrenaline pushed him forward. Lyra stayed by his side, refusing to leave him even for a heartbeat. The massive bell tower rose before them, stone, ancient, sturdy. They dashed inside and slammed the wooden door shut. Arin shoved a beam across it while Lyra grabbed a metal rod lying near the stairs. The shadows struck the door instantly. Boom, boom, the wood splintered under the force. Lyra grabbed Arin's face with both hands. Think, the mark, can't you do something with it? I don't know how. Then try. Another thunderous slam rattled the entire tower. The door was on the verge of breaking. Arin stared at the mark on his wrist. The golden symbol pulsed faster, brighter, reacting to the proximity of the shadows. It was as if some force inside him was waking up, rising like a tide. Come on, he whispered to himself. Please, do something. He pressed his palm to the stone wall and focused every shred of will into the mark. For a moment, nothing. Then, FWOOOM. A burst of golden light exploded from his palm, racing up the tower walls in spiraling patterns. The whole structure glowed with ancient sigils that had remained hidden for centuries. The shadows recoiled with shrieks that pierced the air like claws scraping steel. Arin collapsed to his knees, panting. Lyra knelt beside him. Arin, that was you. He shook his head, dazed. No, it was the mark. The shadows outside writhed angrily, unable to cross the barrier. The glowing sigils held them at bay, but not for long. Already cracks of darkness began spreading along the stone like burning oil. Lyra looked at Arin with a mixture of fear and awe. What is happening to you? He swallowed hard. I think, the gate didn't just choose me. It unlocked something inside me. The tower trembled as the shadows intensified their assault. Arin clenched his fists. We can't stay here. If those things want me, then I need to find out why. Lyra nodded. Then we go back to the forest. Arin stared into the night beyond the tower window. The path ahead was no longer a mystery, it was a warning sharpened into destiny. The obsidian gate had begun to open. The shadows had awakened, and something behind that door was calling him home. Lyra tightened her grip on his arm. Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone. Arin met her eyes, heart pounding with fear and resolve. Then let's finish what the forest started. As the golden symbols flickered like dying firelight, the two of them slipped down the back staircase, shadows howling behind them. And together, they ran, not away, but toward the ancient darkness waiting in the trees. Toward the truth, toward the gate, toward a destiny older than the world itself.